According to the Department of Housing, homelessness is officially worse than during the global financial crisis, with baby boomers becoming homeless at the fastest rate since the Great Depression. And while individuals sleeping in vehicles have more than doubled since 2019, billionaire net worth rose by 81%, controlling more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Raising the question, when did forced homelessness become the nation's business model? Despite the United States facing the most expensive housing market in history, with cities like San Francisco charging $700 a month for a 4-foot tall sleeping pod, the top 0.1% still controls enough wealth to purchase every home across the nation's 25 largest metro areas without going into debt, proving that what is framed as a housing shortage is actually a market that has been deliberately reshaped to extract as much value as possible from a basic human necessity, reinforcing the idea that you will own nothing and be forced to be happy about it. While the lead up to the 2008 financial crisis saw home prices more than double, median monthly rent only gradually increased alongside both inflation and income growth, allowing renters to spend around 25 to 30% of their income on housing and maintain a difficult but still achievable path towards home ownership, or at the very least, a stable way to keep a roof over one's head. However, as a result of tens of thousands of small and regional builders becoming bankrupt or absorbed during the recession, and institutional investors coming to dominate as much as 57 to 75% of single-family rentals in certain neighborhoods, both the construction and ownership sides of the housing market are now increasingly controlled by a small number of firms. Today, the top 10 builders capture nearly 45% of all new single-family home closings, the highest share ever recorded, with just two companies, D.R. Horton and Lennar, controlling well over 20% on their own. And while this level of concentration is already enough to influence pricing, supply, and development decisions, both of these companies have the same two primary shareholders: BlackRock and Vanguard. When including State Street, these three firms control over 25% of all voting shares in corporate America, giving them the ability to influence the price, quantity, and quality of the nation's housing supply, while concentrating both control and financial upside in the hands of the wealthiest individuals who own these assets. And while you may be thinking, shouldn't this benefit us all as BlackRock is funded by pension plans and 401ks? Well, the reality is that the bottom half of Americans barely control 1% of all corporate equities and mutual fund shares, while the top 1% controls over half, and the top 0.01% alone controls over 10%, proving that when a select few shareholders essentially own the housing market, building affordable housing at scale is fundamentally not in the shareholders' best interest, making mass homelessness an accepted cost of doing business. According to research by Luis Quintero at Johns Hopkins, this level of concentration has allowed these firms to artificially reduce annual housing supply by roughly 150,000 units per year, or nearly 2.6 million homes since the recession, while increasing price volatility by more than 50%, making luxury and higher margin projects the most profitable option for shareholder returns. According to Redfin, the luxury housing market has grown 3 times faster than the mainstream market, with only 6,700 lower cost rental units under construction compared to nearly 500,000 higher-end apartments. At the same time, private equity-owned built-to-rent communities have risen 134% since 2019, representing the fastest-growing segment in residential development and accounting for roughly 8 to 15% of all single-family housing starts in the United States. And as this shift away from affordable housing continues, nearly half of all renters are now considered cost-burdened, with rent surpassing well over 30% of their income, while over 26% spend more than half, proving that what gets built is no longer determined by what people need to live, but by what generates the highest return, leaving a tiny share of the population to profit from a system that creates growing desperation among people with nowhere else to go. In a 2025 New York Times article, the story follows Mr. Estrada, a 33-year-old single father of 2 working multiple jobs who pays roughly $750 a month to live in a backyard shed with no running water or private bathroom. The structure sits behind a single home that has been subdivided into multiple informal living spaces, where his neighbors include a bike store manager, a nursing student, and a woman who bags groceries, where despite maintaining steady employment, none of them could afford even the lowest tier of formal housing in the area, leaving many of them with few alternatives other than homelessness, with Estrada describing how this reality often led him to dream of dying. And when you consider that within baby boomers' lifetimes, a minimum wage job could cover an entire month's rent with less than a week and a half of full-time work, compared to a reality where multiple jobs are now required to live in a shed, it becomes difficult to feel anything more than embarrassment and disgust for the decay of our country, revealing the unfortunate reality where the line between being housed and being homeless is no longer defined by work, While Estrada's story unfortunately reflects the experience of tens of thousands of Americans, it is also increasingly affecting baby boomers, who have now become the fastest growing demographic entering homelessness. Adults over the age of 55 now make up roughly 20% of the entire homeless population, totaling well over 140,000 individuals on any given night, with that number projected to nearly triple by 2030 if current trends continue. One of the primary drivers is the rampant increase in property taxes for retirees living on fixed incomes, where unlike institutional housing developments that are often able to reduce their tax burdens by 50 to 80% for up to 15 to 30 years through pilot agreements, many baby boomers are now being priced out of homes that they've owned for decades. At the same time, private equity has expanded into senior living facilities, with firms accumulating roughly 8 to 15% of the market over the past 2 decades, and frequently raising rents by double-digit percentages within 2 years of acquisition. In one case, Martha Bray, a Vietnam veteran, saw her monthly rent increase from $1,395 to $6,500 after her facility was acquired, a 365% increase that ultimately forced her to leave, while the new ownership withheld over $100,000 from her original deposit. Where despite working for decades, 26% of senior renters are now cost-burned, and another 35% are severely cost-burned, as the system continues to prioritize shareholder returns for a small group at the top, even as more than 60% of senior renters are unable to afford rising housing costs. And institutional investors are now consuming one of the last remaining sources of affordable housing: manufactured homes. In 2020 and 2021, institutional investors accounted for 23% of all manufactured home park purchases in the United States, with just 23 private equity firms controlling more than 1,800 parks across the country, representing over 400,000 lots, where in Michigan alone, private equity owns roughly 25% of all manufactured housing, raising rents by more than 45%. And to fully understand the predatory greed that we have continuously highlighted in this video, listen to how real estate investor Frank Rolfe describes the benefits of purchasing manufactured home parks.
The big thing is they can really tolerate rent increases really well. And it pretty much works throughout America because there's so much need for affordable housing right now.
Resulting in Americans like Madeline Beckett seeing rent increase by over 50% following Wall Street's takeover.
How much longer can you afford to live in your home?
1 month. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hope that I don't wake up tomorrow. I haven't been poor. I worked for 45 years. There is no American dream anymore. All it is survival.
And in a system built on the idea that you will own nothing, the one remaining factor that has historically allowed people to stay afloat while working towards home ownership is actively being gutted as well: employment. Despite 2025 becoming the first year on record to see over 1 million layoffs without a recession, alongside the second straight year of the largest downward job revisions in history, and an unemployment rate now sitting at a 4-year high, tech billionaires are still aggressively pushing the job market towards an AI-driven takeover. Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter, who is estimated to be worth roughly $5.5 billion, announced in February that his financial technology company, Block, will reduce its workforce from around 10,000 employees to roughly 6,000 as artificial intelligence tools accelerate the company's productivity. At the same time, new data from Resume Builder shows that 54% of nearly 900 US companies surveyed said they are already reducing or plan to reduce worker compensation to free up capital for AI spending in 2026. Many of these cuts are coming from areas traditionally tied to performance and long-term incentives, with 61% targeting bonuses, 60% reducing equity or stock awards, and 59% cutting raises, stripping away the very incentives that drive long-term thinking. And as this continues, 43% are cutting base salaries, while 26% are planning to lay off workers entirely to fund AI investments by the end of 2026, highlighting how it's difficult to see AI being used to support the workforce rather than drive mass unemployment, as companies are already choosing to invest in AI instead of the people that they still employ. The reality is that if this mass replacement does come to fruition, the lack of any forward thinking or genuine consideration for the bottom 99% will not result in the utopian reality that tech billionaires want us to believe. And while there are still very real geopolitical and systemic risks that could disrupt the current AI boom, it becomes increasingly clear that whatever current trajectory we are heading in does not account for anyone other than a select few shareholders, leaving the inevitable losses to be socialized through bankruptcy and homelessness, while the profits will remain private.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
And so what I hope that we're beginning to recognize is that we are witnessing massive systemic decay. We're witnessing the middle class being completely eliminated. And we just actively have to say that. It isn't rocket science to understand what's happening. If you wanted to fix the housing market, zoning laws need to be changed. How about instead of us paying property taxes, the corporations and the massive housing developments and the build-to-rent cities, instead of them being able to pay or reduce their property taxes by 50 to 80% and delay it from 15 to 30 years, they paid the property taxes. You would think that if you were in power, you would make the decisions to be able to help out the population, your community. That isn't what's happening. I just do not buy the fact of we're in a housing shortage and we just can't build homes. Whoopsies, can't do it. You're telling me that we can spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars building AI data centers that are stripping the resources from our local communities and we can't build affordable housing? It's absurd. If it was a priority, it would be done. And it's not. And I think that what I'm just really getting disgusted with is this, it's the whole like bread and circuses thing. I think it is just so blatantly obvious that the people in charge do not care about us. We are so economically insignificant. I don't even think that they have to pretend. They're just kind of like, yeah, well, sucks to suck. I just did a poll. I said, do you think that homelessness will increase or decrease by 2030? 50,000 people did the poll. 94% said increase. That's the state of our country. The sad reality is that there were people that answered that out of the country as well. And it's very obvious the confidence they have in us. The fact that we're going to have to spend between $130,000 to $150,000 in rent by the time we turn 30, that's a disaster. And nothing is being done. There is no incentive for anything to be done. And so it's only going to get worse. And the issue is that instead of addressing that, we say things like, well, if you wanted it bad enough, you'd go find affordable housing. You move to the Midwest, you can still buy a home for $150,000. And it's like, okay, that's fair. But one, the job availability in that area probably isn't as great. The other reality is that if I move to that area, what I just did is I just stole the opportunity for a 26-year-old person that is working as hard as he can to be able to afford that $150,000 home. I saw that happen in my community. I grew up outside of Austin in the country. When I graduated high school in 2018, I specifically remember, because it was right by where we pulled out of our high school, there was a sign that said homes in the 300s, homes in the 2 to 300s. And I thought, God, that is crazy. Because when I grew up, we had a blinking red light. When 2020 happened, we had a mass migration of people from New York and California and Seattle and all over the place, moving to my area. I think what they said was the median home or the average home in my area is now $748,000. And so what I saw is that I did everything that I was supposed to. I worked not only a full-time job, I worked a part-time job. I saved up everything. I drove a beater car. I didn't go out and eat. I did community college at night. I did everything that people would say, you should be doing this. And I was priced out. And so, yes, I can go move, but then somebody else that is in my shoes is having to face the same thing. And that isn't right. Again, we can build homes. We're not incompetent. It isn't impossible. We're spending, trillions of dollars trying to get rockets to Mars, and we can't give people homes? Like, let's wake up. I don't understand it. 94% of people thinking that homelessness will increase. That is a horrible metric. Childhood poverty is skyrocketing. Child labor, skyrocketing. Do you hear that mentioned? Absolutely not. And it's disgusting. I feel like I'm unraveling here right now. This was one of the hardest videos I had to write because it was just, it was the lady talking about her manufactured home. That's the reason why I made this video. And some of you might be thinking, oh, it's slightly repetitive. And it was because I couldn't stop thinking about what she said when I did the private equity video, especially the aspect of baby boomers becoming the group entering homelessness the quickest. Like both of those things, I do not understand how they are not on every headline in the nation. To have a woman, work her entire career, do everything that she was supposed to do, own her manufactured home. She had rent that she was used to always having to pay, and randomly it goes up 50%. Now she's having to go to a food bank, and what she wishes is that she doesn't wake up in the morning. And give me just a moment. And again, being 26 years old, I'm supposed to be over here grinding so that I'm able to buy a home and start a family. And yes, in the rugged individualist way, I can still do that. I am not giving up. And I am not saying that you can't go buy a home or that you can't have a career or all of these many things. You won't be able to profit off of AI and, all of these things. But as a community, as a nation, we're falling apart. And this was something that I kept thinking about because I was like, I'm not going to let this just be a super negative video. Is I said, the way that we make a change is that you can't let the fact that you can't own a home or rent a home or whatever it is, you can't live with your parents or you live with your parents or all the different aspects of the housing market. Don't let the fact that you can't have a home mean that you can't have a community. And so I think that what we actively have to do is that we have to find people that are still interested in making things better. We have to find people that genuinely care. We have to find people that are wanting to build a better tomorrow. And we have to stay as close as we possibly can. I did a video on my Patreon, and I was mentioning how I was really feeling hopeless. I was having a hard time finding hope. And I had a ton of people send just such sweet things to me saying, just all these different aspects. And, it just became so crystal clear that in the ways that I am helping them, inspiring them to also create channels or to run for local political offices or to be there more for their kids or, to share their personal stories or all of these different aspects. And the ways that I'm able to inspire them, they inspired me. And so while you might think, so what do we do to change this? I'm here to tell you that I'm a 26-year-old guy from Austin, Texas that has an action figure collection that goes bowling at night. And I would say that I'm helping make, even if it's the tiniest amount, I am changing the world. I'm creating a small ripple of hope. There isn't I'm not some rare case. I just care and I work really hard. And so then I look at, the fathers and the mothers and the friends and the brothers and the sisters and everybody in my Patreon group and in, you as subscribers for the channel or supporters of the channel. I see all of us and we're working together. And so I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that this is a success and that it's unrealistic to think that one video or one person or, these different aspects are just going to change everything that we're addressing. I'm not going to be able to just stop private equity, or I'm not going to be able to go fight BlackRock, literally like the corporate overlord of the world. But I do think that if we work together, man, we can really start to fight back in some sort of way. Where are the consumer boycotts? I remember watching, maybe it was like a year ago, and I put it in one of my videos, the Pepsi CFO was talking about how because the economy has gotten so bad and people can't afford a new car or a home, that they are leveraging their salty snacks of the Pepsi brand, so like Fritos or Lay's potato chips or whatever. And so that's why they are continuously raising prices, because they haven't found a bottom yet. And I found that so disgusting that I have not touched a Pepsi brand, a Pepsi related brand since that point. Even one of my most favorite chips, when I found out that they were acquired by Pepsi, I basically threw the bag away. They're just rotting in my pantry. I will never touch them. I don't even want to look at the bag. That's how disgusted I am. And we have to start doing that. You know, the amount of people that say, screw billionaires and, you know, screw this and this sucks and all these things. And then 3 Amazon packages get delivered. Like that doesn't work. You can't say, man, Mark Zuckerberg isn't even real and he drinks water weird. Oh, sorry, I was just on Instagram and Facebook for 3 hours. Right? So at least if you're going to shop on Amazon, have it be for something that's going to start your own business, or have it be something that's going to allow you to support the community. If you're going to be doom scrolling on Instagram or Facebook, have it be about things that you're actively wanting to learn about, or that, you know, maybe you're sharing or you're creating on the content. We all have a voice, and we still have the opportunity to be able to speak our voice. So let's be more powerful. Let's have initiative. And again, don't let the fact that we don't have a home mean that we can't have a community. And don't let the fact that things are so bad out there mean that we can't look for the good. I think that we have to look for the good, but also be, you know, almost with the protection of understanding that there is bad out there. And so I just think I think that we have to do better. We have to recognize that it isn't necessarily our fault. And yes, we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we can get this better for maybe ourselves. But I'm interested in what can we do as a nation? What can we do as a community? But first, we have to build the community before we can target the bigger aspects of life. So that's about all that I have to say. I hope this video was able to provide some value to you. I really appreciate your support. If you don't mind liking the video and subscribing if you haven't already done so. Again, like I'm continuously saying, I am really trying to figure out what it is that I can do to make a change. I don't exactly know what that's going to be, but I'm putting my best foot forward in front of one another, and I'm just doing my best. So anyway, until next time, bye-bye.